Check, check. Toot, toot.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for Monday, December 12th, 2022. I now call the meeting to order at 6:31. We're late.
Councilmember Clark.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Present.
Councilmember Rona.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Uhrig.
Here. All right. Councilmember Rona, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Everybody please stand up.
Thank you so much. Good to see so many people out in the audience today. It's awesome. So making us all nervous now. All right. We do not have any proclamations or commendations today for this particular meeting, and and no presentations. Actually, that's going to be in the public comment. Okay, so no presentations, but we do have public comment right now, and I have one speaker slip, and that would be for Tracy Beard from our chamber.
Good evening, all. Thank you, council members. It's been a pleasure to have you all serve the city for the years of your service. Thank you, Robert, for your service to our community. Thank you, Jim, for your dedication for your 2 long years. Serving on the council we know is very difficult, and as all you know, the pay is not that well for any time and away from your families that we ask of you. But as citizens and business owners and a representative of this business community, we know your hearts have always been with the city of Solvang and have never gone unrecognized for our Chamber of Commerce. We want to take a moment and give you an economic update from our tourism of where we are. We know economic development is tourism. Tourism is what strengthens our city budget. To take a moment on recapping our 2022 economic grants, working with the community on business retention, the economic employment grants. We have brought in $4.2 million this year to the city of Solvang and the business community alone on those programs. Last week, we brought in $18,000 to the business community on the restaurant revitalization grant from PG&E. We are very grateful for PG&E for that grant. We are the only city that received that grant. So let me repeat that. We're the only city that received that grant. I think we have an echo. Okay. That means for every restaurant received $3,000, that's 275 hamburgers they would have had to serve that day, or 200 glasses of wine to make their profit margin. And we're very happy that the city, we were able to work on doing that with some of our businesses in this community on that funding. The chamber will continue to work with the new council that has been seated shortly. Our chamber will continue to be the economic driver to support the businesses on ongoing grants, understanding government grants, federal, and the collaborative partnership to the nonprofit community and to our cities next door. The chamber will continue to work in 2023 with the Economic Development Collaborative of Ventura Santa Barbara County on our grant to make a thriving community for Solvang. And on a side note, our contract finished number 3 in the state of California this year. So we're very proud of that, working with the EDC in Ventura, Santa Barbara County this year. We will continue those partnerships with the planning department, new business on the process, strengthening for signage, hoping to continue for a smoother new business licensing for to come. It's a privilege when someone lands here in Solvang, and we've done our due diligence to work with that business. Tomorrow, we have the pleasure of inviting C&E, a fine jewelry store, Elisa and Sierra, to Denmark Square. And I hope that we see you all, because when someone comes here and we invite you to a ribbon cutting, These two young ladies have a long family history of their grandfather and great-grandfather from the old Parsons drugstore. They choose to come back to their roots. So I ask you to come to a ribbon cutting. It's not for the chamber, it's for the business community to honor and welcome that business, because we do a ribbon cutting for every business, whether a chamber member or not. This ladies have landed here to support economic development, to make one less vacancy in our community. We know we have 5 more left to fill in our downtown area, working with our owners in development, and we will continue working as to be the small business, and we are Small Business USA, so we're very proud of that, and we welcome Renee Martinez as our new board president in 2023. And I also welcome Elizabeth and very much, let me just say, Elizabeth to the seat next, and also Mr. Brown to the seat. So we're very grateful, and thank you to Dave and everyone for running, and all of you for giving of your time, your family, and your service. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. We definitely appreciate all the work that the chamber puts into the business community, and not just in Solvang. I had one other speaker slip. Lansing, Duncan?
Good evening, Mayor Uhrig and council members. For the benefit of your new members, I'm Lansing Duncan, Valley resident for 33 years, Solvang resident for 15 years. I'm a former county planning commissioner. I've served as the chair for the San Ynez Valley General Plan Advisory Committee that worked on the first draft of the community plan. I'm currently on the County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission, and I serve as the vice chair of SBCAG's Measure A Citizens Oversight Committee. And I'm on the Solvang GPAC, looking at the update of the general plan. Congratulations to the new mayor and council members, but I have to wonder whether you know what you're in for. Okay. My advice to you is pace yourselves. I want to extend my sincere thanks to the outgoing mayor and council members, including Councilmember Clark. But I particularly want to thank Charlie Uhrig and Jim Thomas for providing stability when the city needed it. They had the courage to step in when they thought the city was straying from its core values. And I wish they were sticking around tonight to deal with the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Lansing. Appreciate it. I don't have any other speaker slips at this time. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on any item that is on the consent calendar and or not on the regular agenda for this particular meeting? Because there will be council comment or public comment at the next meeting. So we're going to take a break in a bit, but just be aware that there are going to be a couple of opportunities, one right now and one at the new meeting. So you need to do yours right now. What?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jutta Eichinger, and I am in charge of the Niels Brock Homestay Program, and I would like to also inform the public about this program. It is Niels Brock Business College from Copenhagen, Denmark. They have been doing a school program with the local high school, the Santa Ynez High School, and they have been sending school classes for in the last 8 years. We had 8 classes here. They sent a school class of 28 students, and the students are here for 1 semester or for 4 months attending the high school. And the students need to be living in local families. And I am organizing that homestay program for them. And we are still currently, our next class is coming next month in January 29 and staying for 4 months. And we still looking for local families that would like to host those students. They love the experience, and especially the 27 students would love to stay their time in Solvang. The hosts need to provide a bedroom and meals, and of course make them part of their family, help them with transportation to and from school. and otherwise just inviting them to to their family for that time. Hosts get paid $800 a month a student. And I would like to leave some flyers outside for everybody. If you're interested to host a student, we would love to have you in this program. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Yuta. Appreciate it. We appreciate all that you guys do, bringing the students over here with the high school. So thank you. And that was our final. Do we have any other public comment at this time? Again, there will be public comment at the second meeting as well for those items. Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Oh, is there any on Zoom? Forgot about Zoom. I don't see nobody on Zoom, okay. And next, we're moving on to council comments. Is there any comments that any council member wishes to make?
We
at
did
this
have
time?
a city manager report.
Up.
Would you?
Excuse me. We want to get out of here.
What are you, new?
Sorry about that,
Because
Brad.
2/5 of you will be here for the
Yes.
next meeting. The December 26th meeting has been canceled, so we won't have another meeting until January. And there's a couple items that'll be on that. One is a Human Trafficking Awareness Month is scheduled for resolution on that. Our remote meetings resolution, our warrants approval, an award of our Friedensburg Canyon waterline project. And then two other items. One will be our water rate penalty. We'll be addressing that again because you did put it on a stay for 3 months, so we wanted some direction on that. And then may or may not have a new council member appointment based on what happens at the second half of this meeting. So, and the timing of that. So that's my report for future agenda.
All right. Thank you very much. Any questions of the manager's report at this time? All right. Moving on, council comments. Is there any council member wishing to make any comments at this
I'll
time?
make a comment. I'm really upset that I left my QAnon shaman outfit at the dry cleaners. And for those of you who do not know, Niels Brock and the exchange program, my family and I have done it. Please get the word out. We have become lifelong friends with the families that we hosted, although after the first one, you two knows, my wife wouldn't do it for 2 years because how could we find somebody better than William? And 2 years later, we did, and now there are 4 more surfers in Denmark. So please, please, please get the word out to your friends about Niels Brock and hosting students. It's just an experience you'll cherish for the rest of your lives. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to do some thank yous. And I want to start with Robert. It's been a pleasure working with you. It really has, because I know exactly where you stand, and you stand for what you believe in, and I really admire that. I admire the stances that you've taken. Clow, Burning Man, I still can't believe that, but
She's Clow.
You're just such a fresh person to be with up here, and so intelligent. I've thoroughly enjoyed your company. Mark, I'll skip you. No. Mark and I probably, besides Charlie and I from our previous work, Mark and I have probably been the closest over the last 2 years and had the most comments back and forth and discussions, because you have to leave it at 2 for most of the time. And I really appreciate your friendship and your advice, and I wish you the best going forward.
You still have to teach me how to play golf.
I don't have that much time.
Touche.
And Charlie, we worked together in 2 arenas. You worked for me, and I've worked for you, and I think it's worked out both very well. And
I agree.
You've been a fantastic mayor. And you, before that, your work with the city as a resource officer was just fabulous. And I knew that from not even being here, but on the Rancho rides and everything else, to see you put all that together. You've just, you've been a great mayor. And I think everybody agrees with that. For the city staff, I'm going to come around tomorrow and say hi to all of you and do some things, so I won't go over all that. But Dave, thank you for your counsel, literally, and your friendship through some tough times. Brad, you're a breath of fresh air. I'm very happy to have worked with you for the time that I have, and especially Anna Marie for everything that you've done to help in a lot of ways that some people will know, others won't. But you've gone a long way in helping this council and this city go straight, and I appreciate that. Our DRC members, Planning Commissioner, and Tourist Advisory appointees, thank you very much for taking the time. I hope you stay involved if you can. To the citizens of Solvang, thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend 2 years up here, and it's a great city, and it's great people. I want to especially thank Lammy, kinda, for getting me involved in the first place. She recruited me to get him to run for office when I did, and I appreciate that. And I want to welcome David and Elizabeth. You're in for a very interesting time. I thought I had a pretty good idea about politics and city policies and so forth, and I learned so much up here, and I know you will too. And I wish you both the best, and I look forward to watching you. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Mark.
Couple of things, but excuse me, for those of us that are going to stay here, you know, one of the things that's been great and was even brought up to me by a reporter in the audience, I believe, said, you know, watching this council work together versus the last council has been just absolutely a pleasure. We get along. We don't always agree, but we get along. We laugh. We giggle a little bit. Get angry a little bit. My wife doesn't like when I do that, but anyway. So I wanted to say thank you, and I hope that our next council, we can have that same kind of relationship here with the community and with each other. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for the work that you've done. It's been wonderful working with you, and I echo the sentiment, Mark. We don't always agree. We all come from different backgrounds, different perspectives, and at the end of the day, we take our job seriously, and we do our best to take decisions that affect all of us. And I would hope that this trickles down to other arenas of the public and private sector. We don't all have to agree to work together. So thanks everybody again. And by the way, white hair takes color dye really good. If you ever wanted to try it.
We'll have to go blue. I go blue. All right. Finally, for me, I just wanted to thank everyone again on this council right now. It's been a pleasure and an honor working with each of you. As it's been said, you know, I think more than anything, it's just been great to have some civil discourse, whether we agreed or not. So thank you guys very, very much for your time and the effort, for everything that you did for us as a council and for every one of the residents of the city of Solvang. It won't go unnoticed. The staff, Dave, thank you for being available for us from the very beginning, pretty much, and keeping this ship steady and going forward. We wouldn't be where we are right now if it hadn't been for a lot of your advice, and we really appreciate it. Thank you for being available to come back, and we really appreciate that. Brad, same with you. We worked together for quite a while before, and it's been great to be able to have you back heading the ship and keeping us moving forward at this time. So I'm sure Mark will work alongside you, except don't let him read the maps. You can't read a map worth being. You got to be the one guiding the ship. So, but anyway, thank you again for stepping up and moving us forward and for this next council to figure out what we're going to do going forward for the city. And Anna Marie, same thing with you, just all the time. The agenda is answering the questions, keeping us on all of our deadlines and the timeframes that we need, you know, whether it's a Public Records Act request or whether it's election stuff and or anything to do with the FPPC, keeping those deadlines going. Thank you for all those friendly reminders, and thank you for your work that you've done for the city and for all the residents here. city staff. I can't move on without saying thank you to all of our city staff, from water, Mike, all the guys there, Nathan out in wastewater, Jose, thank you for coming back and helping us out with our utilities and keeping us going forward and keeping us plugged in. Roger, thank you for your leadership in the Public Works Department. I know it's been a struggle trying to keep staff moving and getting all the events, everything that's going on, especially with the minimum staffing. And Sophia, same with you. We're grateful for you and Lori for working and Lori too, for working together for the years that we've had with you guys over there in planning in the building department. And Wendy, it's great to have you back again. Different chair, different office part. You actually get to close the door this time. So it's great to have you back in the fold. And thank you again for all of the other workers. Can't name them all. Don't want to name them all right now because there's just so many of them. But for all the work that you guys do, keeping the city running, keeping the water coming to our taps, keeping the toilets being able to be flushed, and the streets cleaned, and all of those types of things. We just really thank you for all of your efforts. You always make Christmas, especially right now for us, with all the lights on the trees and keeping all that stuff together for us and making us still look like the best Christmas town in USA. So it's really a pleasure to be here, and I've been honored to be your mayor, and thank you guys for the kind words. I told my wife I wouldn't do this, but sorry to embarrass you, babe. I'd like to thank Tara for my support for this for a while now, but especially for all of the meetings, for the times when I've had to read agendas or attend other meetings when it's our time. So thank you. And Katie, thank you for your work in helping with my campaign and getting me elected. And thanks to Susan Williams, too, for helping out as part of my little two-person committee of two. So thank you for that. And for the rest of my family, just thank you for all of your support for the last years working here in Solvang, as well as the last couple of years being your mayor. So couldn't have done any of this without you guys. So thank you very much. And lastly, to all of the residents, just wish you all, from my family to yours, to all of you as residents, remember to stay engaged, keep this new council on their toes. You certainly kept us on our toes, and I have no doubt that between Elizabeth and David joining with a new council coming in, and however you select the next person coming in, that all of you will have the best interests of the city at heart. So wish you all the best going forward, and many blessings to all of the residents, and good cheer for the new year. And I have to say, Skol. That's my comments. Moving forward, we will now move to the consent agenda. And is there any items wishing to be pulled at this time from the consent agenda items?
No.
With that, do we need to go to public comment?
Not on consent. You're supposed to do that on the first.
On before, that's right. So just moving this else. Is there any,
I'll make a motion, we approve the
Make a
consent
motion.
agenda items.
and is there a second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Rona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
We have no public hearings moving forward. We do have items for discussion. Can we read item A? 6A.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
Because this is agenda item number 6, and there is an A and a B, are we voting on these together?
I think we should do them separate.
Thank you. I don't know why it is
Broken out in A and B. and
number
C, right?
6, yes, because they're two, it's apples and oranges.
Yep. We'll start off with 6A.
Adopt resolution number 1201, reciting the facts of the general municipal election held on November 8th, 2022, and declaring the result and other such matters as provided by law.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a quick staff report. I should have
Quick.
had Anna Marie do the staff report because she got the resolution attachment right, but
Yeah.
I got the numbers wrong in the staff report. So I wanted to just correct that. There's several versions out there. For District
Yes.
4, Elizabeth Arona had 334 votes, which was 50.68%, and Robert Clark had 323 votes, which was 49.01%. So I did want to correct that mistake I made, and then actually on the yes for Measure U was actually 1,635 votes. So there was a couple of versions of this floating around, but those are the numbers. Anna Marie had them in the resolution that you have before you, and that's
And the numbers for District 3 are correct?
yes.
Okay. So with that clarification, is there any questions of the staff report? We'll take this out for public comment at this time. Is there anyone? I don't have any speaker slips. I'll give you these right now. I don't have any speaker slips on this particular item. Is there any one wishing to address 6A on this? Seeing, is there anyone out in Zoom wishing to address item 6A? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for final comments or questions.
Is there
Not-
actually an option to say no? We don't like the election results. We're just going to vote no.
Yeah,
There always is.
yeah, there always is.
What happens then?
We're gonna,
You don't want to do that.
I'm just curious.
There's actually a county in southeastern Arizona that tried that, Santa Cruz County, and there was a writ of mandate filed to compel it was either the Board of Supervisors or a city council to certify the election because it was a ministerial act. There was no discretion involved in that, and so a judge ordered the city council to go ahead and certify the vote. So that's what happens.
Okay.
there you go.
All right.
So is there anyone wishing to make a motion to accept item 6A?
I'll move that we accept item 6A and adopt the resolution 1201.
Is there any second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes?
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Moving on to item 6B.
Declare the vote of the people to approve ordinance number 220363, an ordinance of the City of Solvang, California, imposing a locally controlled 1-cent transaction and use sales tax to be administered by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration.
Is B continue with the other two?
Take them
Mine.
separately.
Okay.
Okay, approve resolution 22-1202, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, authorizing examination of sales and use tax records. And approve resolution number 22-1203, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, authorizing the city manager to execute agreements with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration for implementation of a local transaction and use tax.
All right. Is there a staff report? Wendy, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and the public. I'm Wendy Berry, Administrative Services Director, and tonight we have before you 3 action items to consider. And these items are required by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration to move forward with implementing the sales tax increase from Measure U. The Solvang residents prioritize the use for the increase transactions and use tax. The proceeds of the tax will be deposited into the general fund to be used for general municipal governmental purposes like potholes, street repair, flammable brush removal, 911 emergency response, neighborhood police patrols, rec programs, and other vital city services. The revenue generated from the 1 cent increase in the transaction and use tax will increase the sales tax revenue that will be deposited into the general fund and will take effect April 1st, 2023. The precise amount of the revenue generated will be dependent on the taxable sales, which can fluctuate from quarter to quarter. Section 7285.9 of the California Revenue and Taxation Code authorizes any city to levy increase or extend a transaction and use tax for general purposes at a rate of 0.125% or multiple thereof, subject of approval by 2/3 vote of all of the members of the city council and a majority of the qualified voters of the city of Solvang voting in an election on the issue. And this, this use tax was voted on and approved on the November 8th election. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions of the,
I have one question.
go ahead.
You listed several of the uses of the new sales tax. Is grants included in services? Is approving the grants that this council likes to give to nonprofits and other people's good deeds? Can this new tax be used for that purpose as well?
Yeah, it can be used for any general fund purpose, so that would fall under that purview.
Real quick. I understand it passed. What was the percentage? Do you have it?
67.
67? Thank you.
One of the one of the things that I've heard from several residents is the comment, a 1 cent sales tax increase, which is not really obvious to everybody. It's 1 cent per dollar, so it is 1%, but nobody ever says 1 cent per dollar. They just say a 1 cent tax increase. And I think we need to make that very clear to everybody, that it is a 1% of the sales.
After the vote.
Well, since this has become an issue for a number of members of the public, I did want to point out that the actual language of the ordinance, which was included in the election materials, made it clear that it was 1%. In the impartial analysis that I provided, it made it clear that it was 1% as well. The language of the title is not the operative language that the voters are adopting. They're adopting the ordinance, which made it clear. In the impartial analysis, I even included an example of what that 1% would constitute on a particular sale. So I think there were ample opportunities. If there were members of the public who believed that it was not clear, there is a process under law to have either the ballot title or the text of it changed or otherwise inhibited, and there was no action challenging that. So the language is what it is in the ordinance, and that will be how it is administered.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. I see that Muni Services LLC is designated to do, are they doing the accounting, the overseeing of how that revenue is collected?
So they're our sales tax consultant. So you've probably seen some reports that in the prior reports from the finance department, but they are under contract with us to collect our data and give us information based on that forecast, those types of things.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they already do it for us.
They've been doing it for as long as since I was here. Yeah, quite a while. So yeah, this just continues to name them as being able to get our tax information from the state.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Wendy. The last thing I just wanted to say was that I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt to the residents that they were more intelligent than what some of the comments are about the 1 cent, and I think they do understand that it is a 1% on that. But I also wanted to urge and implore the residents, there is a Citizens Oversight Committee that attaches to this, and that needs to be in place. So all of you that have problems with this, maybe you should consider being part of that Citizens Oversight Committee going forward. So you can figure out that it doesn't need to necessarily get spent on grants. It could get spent on other things that are of vital importance for the city right now. So just, that would be my comment for all of you going forward, all right? With no other comments up here, we'll, go ahead.
One other comment about that committee. When do we appoint that committee?
I'll be bringing a matter back early in 2023, establishing the committee. The council will have an opportunity to consider the makeup of that committee, the members of it, the recruitment, and so on, and what their scope is going to be. So we'll have some recommendations on that. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
we're giving comments right now. This is the point where we give questions of the staff report, then we make our comments after public input, correct?
We can,
Thank you. Okay. I have no more questions.
all right? And then lastly, just confirming that it is going to start April 1. It isn't something that starts in, in a couple weeks at the beginning of the year.
The information that we've received from CDTFA is that it will go into effect and start being collected as of April 1st, assuming the other matters on the council's agenda are adopted tonight. Those contracts are a prerequisite to that happening.
All right. And then I guess lastly, the last question would be related to one of the comments that from previous a couple weeks ago. They were concerned about the addresses that were going to be, some of them, I know there's some businesses that say Solvang, they're not technically in the city limits of Solvang, and I just wanted to, how is that going to be addressed? Just for clarification for everyone.
Well, the collection of the tax is going to be up to the retailer or the seller. They're going to have to make a determination of what tax rate to charge. If, say, for example, Amazon is charging the improper tax rate, the person buying from Amazon will need to communicate that with Amazon, let them know that there's a problem. There may also be a remedy for the taxpayer to seek a refund through CDTFA, but I haven't looked into that aspect of it because I don't represent those people. But that is a known issue because the taxes imposed by the retailers will sometimes just look at the zip code instead of the actual physical jurisdiction of the address.
All right. And, related to that, maybe the chamber could help businesses with some of that as well. Just educate them on the collection of those types of taxes going. Again, this isn't happening until April, but down the road. So, any other questions at this time?
Questions?
All right, take it out for public comment. I don't have any speaker slips on this particular one. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this particular item? No one in house? Speak now. All right, bringing it back. Anybody in Zoom wishing to address or ask a question related to this or comment on this particular item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for final comments and/or questions. Go ahead.
Comment. This council boasted last year that we collected record sales tax in 2021. It's such a very city thing to do and a government thing to do when you need more money, you just ask for it or you take it or you put it on a ballot. I voted to approve this, not to approve this. It was quoted in the papers that I voted to approve this. I was against it. I voted to put it on the ballot because I thought the citizens had a right to voice their opinion on it. And obviously they have spoken. My parting comment on this is it's not the taxpayer's responsibility to pay for everybody else's good deeds. It's the taxpayer's money. So keep an eye on this council. If they want to give away money to PHP, People Helping People, or Bethania Lutheran Church to give money to whoever comes up and shows up from whoever where, that's their prerogative. But it's your money, folks. It's the taxpayer's money. That's why I'm very much against Measure U. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, take it for vote right now. Is there anybody who make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the approved ordinance. What was that, 220363?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the action would be to declare the vote of the people to approve ordinance number 220363, an ordinance of the City of Solvang, California, imposing a locally controlled 1-cent transaction and use or sales tax to be administered by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Heurig.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
And then we have the two remaining resolutions.
Is there a motion to accept?
Sure, we're talking about Resolution 22-1202?
Yes. Can we do these? Do you want them separate or together?
I obviously don't want to preempt the council's discretion, but I didn't sense that there would be any distinction between the two. If you would choose to adopt them in one motion, the motion would be to adopt resolutions 22-1202 and 22-1203.
I will move that we adopt Resolution 22-1202 and 22-1203.
Is there
Second.
a second? Okay, roll call, please.
No.
Yes?
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Heurig.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right, thank you. And moving on, item number 7. Any AB 1, 2, 3, 4 reports? I don't think we had any. We didn't have any between. No, well, you could say that. Yeah, what the heck?
So the AB 1234 is supposed to allow us to tell you what we've been doing. That's not necessarily city business, it doesn't require any city money, but just to let you know where we've been. And I have to tell you that last night, I was at General Scheiss's house for a holiday party at Vandenberg Space Force Base with several other people. So that's my report.
There you go. Any other reports at all? No. Just one, it's related to the city, but it was I was able to host on December 2nd, Callie Christian, an 8-year-old second grader from Solvang School for mayor for the day. That was actually very, very fun.
That's cool.
And I appreciated the sheriff's department and all the city employees putting together a little bit of a program for her so that she had a great time for visiting all of the little offices and departments that we have in the city. She really liked the wastewater treatment plant. I don't understand that, but fire department also was there. They helped out, gave her a ride on that a little bit, and then getting out to the air support unit with Lieutenant Green out there organizing that. She got to play a game of Uno with the pilots, and she actually, I think she won. They didn't want to play with her again, yeah. They said, that's enough, and then they said, you're going to go take for a ride on the helicopter. So anyway, I did want to thank all of the employees and the staff here and with the fire department, county fire, and our sheriff's department for being gracious hosts with Callie that day. So I know her parents were really excited about that, and then she got to light the tree with it for us that evening, and so she had a great time that day. So I just wanted to put that out there. And that's the last that I have. Oh, great parade as well for all of the rest of you guys. We really thank all the volunteers who helped out with that in the morning. And of course, we were blessed with great weather just in that time frame. So we were one of the few cities that got to actually have a parade. So it was awesome to have that there. So thank you, Lord. Appreciate that. That's my final comments.
So before you adjourn,
Yes.
we do have a token for the 3 members that are leaving.
A token.
And then we were going to break into after you adjourn to some cake, so a little
All
party
right.
for you all.
Let them eat.
I don't
cake.
think so. But yeah, we'd like to get some photos with you 3
that before.
and
Okay.
your plaques. But yeah, I'll let you adjourn if you'd like to.
All right. So with that, meeting is adjourned at 7:15. Thank you all for being here.
It's on, but I don't hear much. Yeah. Can we get started, please? Can we resume, please? I tried that. That didn't work. Can we please get started? Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you very much. We're going to resume or start the second meeting, and we will start it then at 7:33. As Mayor Pro Tem, I get to declare the meeting started. And now, we're going to go swear.
Yes, the first order of business will be to administer your oath of office. I'm Judge Denise DeBelfay. I've had the privilege of serving as a judge in our county for 28 years. It's such a wonderful thing to be here in Solvang, which is not just the greatest Christmas town in America, it's the greatest little town in America. It's just such a beautiful place to live and work, and I want to thank each of you for undertaking this public service. Public service is so important to our lives. You are giving of yourselves, your talents, your time in the public good. And we really all appreciate it. So with the three of you, please raise your right hands. I'll try to break up this oath. And what I want to do, the very first thing is that I'll say the word I, and then you say your names. And I'd like to do them in order. So I'll start with the mayor, and then the two of you will say your name in turn. And then together, I'll break up the rest of the oath so you say it together. So let's give it a try, shall we? I.
I, Mark Infante.
I, Elizabeth Orona,
I, David Brown.
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Either way is fine. And the Constitution of the State of California. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties. Upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations. You're now officially on duty.
Now you need to sign it.
We'll sign our, you have to sign your oath.
Thanks, Denise. Just to make it a little easier. There you go. She's more important.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Denise. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this adjourned regular meeting of the City Council on Monday, December 12th. I called the meeting to order, but I would now ask the clerk to take a roll, please.
Mayor Infante,
Here?
Councilmember Claudia Rona,
Here.
Councilmember David Brown, Councilmember Elizabeth Arona. Thank you.
David, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please stand. Face the flag and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah, we're all going to learn a few things here as we're new in some of these positions. The microphones do need to be pressed on so you speak, and please bring them forward in front of you. Some people do this, and you can't hear you. Okay, public communications. Do we have any do we have anything here for the non-agenda items? These are all for 6? Okay, thank you. Okay, good. Anybody online? I can't hear you. Oh, anyone else in the audience? I'll get down this pattern here eventually. Or anybody online. It doesn't look like we have anybody else that has non-agenda or consent item public communications. So we'll move to the city manager's report. Do you have something on this?
Well, you heard it before, but the two big items for the next meeting will be canceled, and then you'll have the water rate issue again, penalties, and then what was the other item? Oh, potentially for the appointment based on what you decide tonight on your process and timeline. So, other than that, there's some basic stuff on that, but no different than what I reported earlier.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on the staff report? No? Council comments. Anything you want to say at this point in time? Yes?
Welcome to the new council members. I'm very much looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the exiting council. It's a big personal sacrifice and a lot of time and a lot of hard work, and they did, I think, a very good job, especially Charlie, Mayor Charlie. I would like to thank you all for your work, and you too, Mark. And added responsibilities, good luck to you, and look forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank my beautiful bride, Karen, for all she's done and all the time that she can anticipate me being away. And I'd like to acknowledge and welcome my son-in-law and my grandson and my daughter-in-law, and who is also here. He's a city councilman with the city of Lompoc. Thank you, Jeremy.
Oh, wow.
And I welcome the opportunity to serve. I appreciate the confidence and trust that the electorate has put into me, and I will faithfully discharge that. And then also thank you very much to the past council members and their service. Thank you.
Okay, so we'd have no public hearings on this with the discussion items. If you would read the title for the agenda item, please, City Clerk.
Designation of a mayor pro tem for 2023.
Well, so I put before you your, based on the protocols, what would happen, who you could select. Obviously, it's up to the council as a majority vote to choose, but in looking at the layout, it went first to who hasn't, or who had at least a year of service. If you go through all the criteria in the protocol, it ends up washing out that Elizabeth Arona would be the next in line to do that, because Claudia's already done it. They're both new, and then they go by vote count, and if you look at that. Now, those were based when we used to do general elections as opposed to district elections. But, so you as a council have the option of choosing whomever you'd like as your mayor pro tem, but we recommend you choose one so that you have a secondary mayor.
Somebody to step in when,
Yeah.
when I step out. Does anybody have a problem with, well, first off, Elizabeth, would you be willing to accept that as mayor pro tem?
I would happily accept that responsibility. Would look forward to it.
Any comments, objections?
I think Elizabeth would do a great job.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Elizabeth it is.
Public comment.
Do we have a public comment on electing the mayor pro tem?
Taking an action.
I'm learning the rules.
Yeah, you'll be taking an action, and it would be something that the council should probably make a motion, second, and vote on it.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to appoint Elizabeth Orona as our mayor pro tem.
I'll second that.
And the public comment, if there is any.
We jumped right by that. Yes, sir. Did you want to make a public comment on this?
For our new leader, I would like to remind her that the biblical perspective on wisdom comes with many counselors.
Any other public comment? It doesn't appear we have anybody on Zoom that's interested as well, so we'll bring it back to the council. And now we've had the motion and a second, so if we could have a roll call, please.
Mayor Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Councilmember David Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
The next item we've got on here is establishing the council seats arrangement and council member appointments to boards, committees, and agencies. Staff report, please.
Well, you've assigned some seats already.
Yeah.
I guess as a council, you probably would want to vote on that if anybody wants to change it or not, but you've got it set up, I think, by district is how you chose to do that. So I don't know if you need to vote on that, Dave, that's.
Well, there is the issue of typically, the recommended method is to have the mayor pro tem seated to the right or left of the mayor immediately to that. Now, that would interrupt the numbering of the districts on the dais. So the council should have a specific discussion of where you would like to have the seating and make that clear.
Comments? Do you care? So what we did when we laid everybody's name out with Anna Marie, there would be District 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that the residents of the city know who they voted for and what those people are voting on. So it's your constituents that know what you're doing.
Well, I was not elected by my district. I was elected at large.
Yes, you were.
So I don't mind moving, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to sit in Chris's old seat.
Any other comment? Chris is, yeah, that seat there.
But I recommend we relocate and line.
Good?
No.
Okay.
And line up to the mayor pro tem next to the mayor. What I witnessed was that it seemed to work well that Charlie had a wingman.
The mayor pro tem's position is to take over the mayor's role if the mayor cannot make it for any particular reason. And so having a mayor pro tem sitting next to the mayor makes it a little bit easier. It might confuse the districts, but the districts aren't that big of a deal at this point, I don't believe. So if you'd like to reposition,
Well, you could have the two Aronas switch.
Yeah.
You would still get Mayor Pro Tem next to the mayor.
and I think it would be good to keep the two Aronas, even though they're not related, the common name, apart, just so there's no confusion about who's speaking. So, but do we do that now, or do we do that later?
You have the option to do it now, or you can do it at the next meeting. If everyone is comfortable where they are, as long as we know as staff where to put the
Next
nameplates at
meeting?
the next
Okay.
meeting, that'd be great.
All right, next meeting, we'll change that.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just to
sir.
formalize the seating, if the council could certainly do it by consensus. There's not a formalized requirement, but if you want to make it clear that this is the action of the council, you'd need to make a motion in a second that this will be the seating arrangement for the next meeting.
Would you make a motion for us to that?
Okay, so I'll make a motion to
Keep the city, make the switch.
make the switch
In the next council.
in the next council meeting. Okay.
Second?
I'll second.
Mayor Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Councilmember David Brown, Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. 4-0, excuse me.
Thank you.
And
Ne-
the last piece of this is your boards and committees. There's quite a few that, or not quite a few, there's a page worth on the next page of the positions that we're looking to fill. Obviously, you're one council member short right now, but I think we still need representation on these boards, and you could always, at a later date, change, and once you get a new council member, make amendments to that. But I'll list the ones we need. We need a member for the SBCAG, Association of Governments, both a representative and an alternate. Also Air Pollution Control District, APCD, a representative and an alternate. Those meetings meet once a month. The California Joint Powers Authority, our insurance agency, they meet, that's typically once a year commitment. Currently, Councilmember Clark was the representative and Councilmember Arona was the alternate. The League of California Cities, that would be representation as a delegate once a year at their annual conference. The Eastern Management Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency, that's a monthly meeting. Currently, Mayor Infante is the representative on that, and Councilmember Thomas was the alternate, but you'd want to name a primary and alternate for that also. The Central Coast Community Energy, Councilmember Claudia Arona is a member on that right now. And then you have the Santa Barbara County Library Advisory Committee, which was held by Councilmember Clark, so you want to designate someone for that. So we're just waiting for you to tell us what you'd like to assign or
Okay.
who'd like to do what, and we'll document that and let the boards know that's going to be a representation.
Let's go through them then, if I may. Santa Barbara County of SBCAG, Association of Governments. That is typically held by the mayors of the various governments. As a matter of fact, our last mayor, Charlie, was the chairman of the SBCAG. So I've already put my name forward to them that I would be willing to sit on the board. I wasn't willing really to be the chair at this time. But so as a major representative for SBCAG, we can put me down. I'm willing to do that. As an alternative, in case I cannot make it, who would like to be on the SBCAG? Well, we've got a whole bunch of things that are going to go out, so be careful what you ask for. There's a long list here. All right, so you want to do it then, Elizabeth? All right, so we'll put Elizabeth down as the alternate. Air Pollution Control District. I was, again, the representative on this one, and Charlie was my alternate in this case. I have no problem staying on the Air Pollution Control District board. We do need a new alternate for APCD. You want to be on the APCD? No? Wow, that was easy.
Are you
Okay.
staying?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
alternate,
I'll
yeah.
take it as primary. And again, the alternate should attend the meetings with the primary, but doesn't have to, unless there's a request for, and Charlie and I, we were really good about saying, Charlie was saying, I couldn't make it, can you?
Okay.
And we'll take care of things. That's the kind of coordination we need to have on these boards. Okay, Joint Powers Authority, the JPIA. This one, I have no knowledge of, really. Was Clark doing it?
Clark was doing it. So this one, it's, let's see, holds annual business. So it's a meeting once in July, and these are the people that help us mitigate risks so that we don't get sued over whatever. And I think they do it because it's a governmental agency, so it needs a board comprised of the jurisdictions that it represents.
So you know about it, so you're going to take over?
Okay, I guess. Unless anybody else wants it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And you'll stay as the alternate?
I'll stay as the alternate, yeah.
Okay, so we got David Brown on the JPIA. Excellent. League of California Cities. This is one I don't see a bunch of this. If you go to the this year, I went to the annual conference and there was nobody else available, so I went in as the representative. So you are the voting member at the end of the 3 days of the conference to vote on the various things that the League of California Cities puts before you. It says Councilmember Thomas. I don't think Thomas ever went. Jim, and it said Clark was the alternate, but that didn't work out quite that way.
Well, what I would point out, Mr. Mayor, is that the League of California Cities gives an opportunity before the conference to designate the voting member, so there would be a resolution passed at that time. So by that time, when that issue comes around, you'll have a fifth council member, so you may have more full opportunity to determine who would represent the city and who would be available. You'll have one more person, in other words, who might be able to attend.
Excellent. So we should just leave that alone for right now. We've got a few
Yeah, I
months
think that one can be
before we meet.
deferred until the conference comes up.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I think the conference may be in September this coming year. I may be wrong on that, but I think it's earlier this year.
Where's it going to be this year? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can find out quickly, though.
That's okay. Just curious. It was in Long Beach this year, so I just
They usually switch north
north to south. Yeah, so it'd be someplace, up in the woods. Okay, Groundwater Sustainability Agency, the Eastern Management Area. So the acronym there in the parentheses is a little off. GSA EMA, I know that Elizabeth is very knowledgeable and interested in water. What this does entail is you're going to be, whoever is that person, is going to be putting votes for what the city is willing to do for the GSA. So there's a responsibility there that if you're going to take this role, that if a vote comes up, you're representing the city. Now, Jose, who was around here before, there he is, is also on the staff, and so he's always there to help, and of course, his knowledge is just amazing. But if you'd like to be the primary on that one,
I am spending quite a bit of time researching this topic, so I would love to be primary, work very closely with Jose, and be the voting representation for the city.
excellent. Who would like to be an alternate? You want to do the alternate? Okay, so David Brown is the alternate. Central Coast Community Energy, that's you. You want to stay there?
I'd love to stay there. Yeah, Central Coast Community Energy. This is a model where different jurisdictions pool their resources together to bring renewable energy to our cities and our counties. And I've loved serving with them, and I would love to stay there. Yeah.
Excellent. So, Claudia Arona. Last one, Santa Barbara County Library Advisory Committee. That was under Robert Clark. Anybody want to take on the library or help the library? I shouldn't say take it on.
Can we, did you do an alternate for the CCE? one?
We didn't have an alternate before.
Would you
Do you
like
want
to?
one?
Well, I think it's always good if,
It's pretty good to have, it's a good idea to have it.
yeah,
Put me down then, I'll be the alternate on that one.
okay.
All right.
I am interested in them, I've spent some time with them, and I'm hitting them up for a refund for my solar and everything, so, yeah. Okay, the Library Advisory Committee. Library?
If there's no takers, I don't want to jump in front of any other volunteer. This
We'll stick the new guy with that one. All right, David, you're to be the alternate. Oh, the one that isn't here yet. Oh, that new guy. I'll catch on eventually. Okay, that gets us for now. We'll
So
we'll wait.
did you do an alternate or no? You want to leave the alternate?
We'll leave the alternate open for the time being.
All right.
How often does the library meet?
You know, I do not know. I
don't
I've
think
been
they
gone
meet
for a few
once or
years.
twice a year, do they?
I wouldn't bet they meet that often, but yeah, just an advisory committee, so probably when issues come up that are countywide, it's typically when the county's addressing their per capita funding and issues like
Right.
that, that's gonna come up, so.
Thank you. Okay, so do we need a motion then to confirm all of this?
I think that'd be a good idea, yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please, to accept all of these appointments?
I'll put forward a motion to accept all of these committee appointments.
Okay.
Mayor Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Rona,
Yes.
Councilmember David Brown, Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Well, we actually have establishing the council seating arrangements in here, and we've already done that, so we'll skip by that. Okay, so the next, I believe, Ms. City Clerk, is the council member appointments? To the boards and committees?
You just
Thank you.
did that. You just did that. You just boards and
Oh, that
committees.
was.
Now we're on
Sorry, I
the
was
council
thinking of
vacancies.
commissions and, yeah, they are, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm moving right along, I didn't even know
That's
it.
the next one on your agenda.
Okay, the discussion of the possible actions regarding the city council vacancy appointment process. That's what's next.
Yes, it is. And that was it. And I could reread that. Discussion and possible action regarding city council vacancy appointment process.
I gotta quit taking her lines.
Okay, so, obviously with the results of the election and you getting sworn in as mayor, you now have a vacancy, and it wasn't official until you got sworn in. So, state code requires you, the council, within 60 days to either appoint or call for a special election when you have a vacancy. So, in the staff report, we've given some options. One would be and the third would be to call for that special election. So, if you were gonna choose the application process, there's some things you'd wanna lay out. One would be, how long are you gonna take applications for? Where are you gonna, what district, if you're gonna use district, because this is an at-large position still for the next 2 years. So if you wanted to decide that someone from District 1 had to be your appointment, then they could run in the 2024 election for that position. So that's one of the things you wanna consider. And then I put in here ranked choice voting, because in the past, there's been some ties with votes, and ranked choice voting sometimes will help a council to come to a final conclusion on picking an appointment when there's multiple people that have applied. And then appointing of a council member candidate, that was done historically when you had at-large elections again, and they would, if a re-election had just happened, they would look at the next highest vote getter. And those are options that, the thing that the state does is it says you have to appoint, but it doesn't say how. And so you as a board get to choose how you're gonna appoint a council member, that vacant seat. So, if you would like to go to just an appointment without applications, there can be a discussion. You could do it this meeting or the next meeting and talk about what criteria you might use for that. But those are the options that you have. I would not recommend not appointing and having to go to a special election because when we looked at it in 2018, it was about $30,000 to do a special election. So I don't think the city council would be looking to do that. And the person wouldn't even be considered until the general election in June. So
Right,
that person
that
would
would
have
be-
a little over a year left in that term, so. So that's kind of a summary of what you have, and as staff, we're just looking for what you'd like us to do. We did put a application in there as a sort of a consideration of what you might want to do. You know, and that part of that was, it talks about giving each candidate or each appointment possibility a 30-minute presentation. You could limit that or whatever you want to do. But, so we're just looking for you to discuss and give us direction as to what process you would like to do to fill this vacancy. That's my staff report.
Thank you very much. Comments?
Brad, did we yet make a public notice for the position, or that would be part of the process?
It wasn't officially open until tonight.
Okay.
So it will go out tomorrow if you so direct us.
I like the idea, for the sake of transparency, of choosing either a runner-up or somebody that already run, because they've already been doing the work, they've been talking to constituents, and there's been some, voter support, rather than picking somebody that just the five of us like.
Any opinions?
Well, I would add, I'm not in favor of going to election. I think it would it would take too much time, and certainly cost would be prohibitive. So I'm in more favor of either appointment or application process, and make it transparent in some way.
Any other comments? I would go along with a couple things. Because my position was at large, we could pick anybody in the city. But if we pick anybody that lives in District 3 or 4, they would be out of their position at the end of 2024. They couldn't be elected again because there will be no elections for those two districts. The Districts 1 and 2 will be up for election in 2024. So it would make more sense to me to appoint somebody from District 1 and 2, which would negate the idea of using election results of who's running for election, because they were only running for elections in 3 and 4. So I would disagree with that idea. So there was a couple things we could do. We could try a couple names tonight, see if anybody agrees, or we can ask for applications. You see the application forms on the packet. And then we can make a decision. Next meeting will be the first meeting in January. So we could make a decision then. Comments? Ideas?
There's a lot of merit to what you say, but this is not an appointment for a four-year term. And it might be prejudiced to find somebody that, even though they would come up in 2 years to be in that, they would run as an incumbent. And that wasn't the objective, I don't think. It was really for a 2-year term to replace to finish out the term that you had. So I don't think that the districting aspect should be, is really germane for that spot.
Other comments?
Well, I think that anything we can do to expedite the process, I think, would also be a high priority. We've got a lot of work to do, and it'd be great to have 5 seats filled as soon as the end of January, or the next meeting would be ideal. I think if we could open the aperture for someone who's already contributing to the city in some way, I think there's a lot of experience that we want to consider. People who are already serving on committees or have served in the past would also accelerate us to get a quality council on board and ready to work in January.
I think we should open the application process and then appoint somebody once that we have them. I don't feel comfortable throwing any names out there tonight.
Do we have anybody in the public that would like to make a comment on this situation? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Karen Waite, former city council member, Solvang resident. Having been through this several times before, I do have to agree that I feel the best process is to take application and then do a point voting system on this. That's the cleanest, most transparent, fair way to do this, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Do you have anybody on Zoom that's interested in making a comment? I don't see any hands up, so I think we're okay. We'll bring it back to the council then. Can I get a motion, or you have any final comments?
I'll just add that if you don't go district-specific, people that ran in the last election would be eligible to apply for the vacancy.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I understand. Thank you.
And we'll need date as to how long you want to take applications to. I think we just put
Yeah,
on
you
the
put a
application.
date in, here, I
29th.
believe, of
Yeah.
December 29th
Yeah.
as an end date for the applications? Have to be in by then? Okay. Any more comments or motion? I'll make the motion.
Sorry, Mark, can I just add a comment?
Sure.
What if, I'll make a suggestion on the process, if we initiate public notice, which is part of the step we've taken tonight, open the application process and make the application also part of the public notice, and accept applications until the end of December, leaving the council and the city leadership chance, probably about a 2-week chance to take a review, and shorten the list or interview if that's part of the step of the process, so that we can at least disclose decision-making that first meeting in January and make a appointment potentially in that meeting.
Yeah.
December 29th being the end of the month, that's what you're suggesting?
Yeah, and that gives us time to get everything into the agenda packet for the 12th,
Right,
so.
and that's important as well. So everybody gets to see who is presenting an application. So, a motion then?
Should I make a motion what I just said? I'll make a motion to initiate a public application process for the next councilperson candidates, and accept applications until December 29th, with announcements on that next step in the first meeting in January.
And this is for a position for serving at large, right?
Yeah, I think we decided,
the
I
position
would
is
say.
at large.
Okay,
Yeah, the
it is at large.
So you'll take applications from any
Anyone.
district. That's what we're hearing. And then
They won't
you
make the
want to address the
decisions.
voting. Are you going to use ranked voting when you do look at the applications? That would be something would want to include in the action.
Okay, so before we finalize the motion then, do we want to have ranked voting? Or just? No.
To funnel down the number of applicants?
You know, that's a good question. Exactly, the only thing I've seen before was a blind vote. You just voted, 1, 2, 3, 4 were your top fours, and you put them all together and see who got the most out of the 4 people in this case.
Yeah, since there are only 4 of you, there's the possibility that 2 of you will pick a particular candidate and 2 of you will pick a different candidate.
Right.
What ranked voting or ranked choice voting does is you pick your first one, your second one, your third one, and it winnows down from that point. Whoever gets the most first place votes followed by the most second place votes and so on. They've used this process in a couple state elections now and a couple federal elections. I believe Alaska first used it this election cycle. So there is a precedent for using ranked choice voting. Obviously, you're not bound by that. You just need to make an appointment, but it is up to you how you would like to make that appointment.
So you want to add that to your motion? We do a ranked style voting?
I'm not yet convinced on ranked voting.
What are,
But-
what
but
are
we-
the
but since-
alternatives?
Yeah.
You don't need to add that condition. You can just take applications and vote on those applications. And if someone gets 3 votes,
We're in.
they're going to be appointed.
Yeah, I'm more in favor of majority rules, although I realize we have, maybe we determine a tie-breaking condition.
Well, if the vote is 2-2 at the council, say, for example, you have two that are in favor of candidate A and two are in favor of candidate B, because it's a tie vote, there's no tiebreaker, there's just no action taken by the council. So then the council would need to make a new motion that would change those votes to try and put in the candidate that would obtain 3 votes. But yeah, there's not really a tie-breaking method when there's a 2-2 vote at a council meeting. It just means there's no action taken in that situation.
Rock, paper, scissors is not a thing?
I've actually seen tie votes broken by a draw of a card, by random number, by straws. I've seen it actually
We have
happen
options.
before.
See, we have options. Okay.
So, you want to make that motion again with that?
Sure.
I think she made that motion, she just didn't want to add the ranked choice voting. So
Exactly.
the motion
We
would
don't
be
need
as
to.
she initially
All right, so
proposed.
that's it. So then we need a second.
Someone can amend it if you'd like.
I'll second your motion.
Mayor Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona,
Yes.
Councilmember David Brown, Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, what are we on, 6D?
C.
C?
Advisory board.
The advisory boards, commissions, and committee recruitment process. Would you lead that, please?
It's a discussion and possible action to receive advisory body boards, commissions, and committee recruitment process.
Yeah, this is really just to kind of inform you where we're at. All of your boards and commissions expire at the end of the year. So we've taken all the agendas for January off, but we think you need to move forward on the recruitment process. So we have actually publicly advertised that all the spots are vacant. We're taking applications, and it's until the 12th of January. So we would be bringing that before you, excuse me, at the second meeting in January to make your appointments to your TAC, your Design DRC, and your Planning Commission. So
Questions of the staff report? I have only one. So we don't have any meetings prior to that January 1st meeting, January for city council?
yeah, we're taking applications until the 12th, so you wouldn't really be able to make the appointments until the second meeting in January, but we have not scheduled, we're going to cancel all of the 3 boards meetings for the month of January.
Okay, so we don't need to continue them or default, we just.
Right. Yeah, you
Cancel.
actually don't have any, at the end of the year, all of the terms have expired, so you don't have any boards or commissions in existence in January. So you won't until you appoint in the end of January.
Thank you. Public comment? No? Nobody on Zoom wants to? Doesn't appear. Bring us back to the council. Anyone have any last comments?
Excuse me, Brad, why are these all 2-year terms?
That's the way the code is written. Yeah, they expire in the even years. They're 2-year terms that expire in the even year. Yes.
Okay. It sounds like it's very dysfunctional if everybody's brand new at the get-go.
Well, that's not to say people won't be reappointed. So you may have the same 5 members that are on there now. You may reappoint those same 5. It's just that their term expires for that appointment.
Last comments? So, you have a motion on this item? Just leave it go?
Just an informational, just
It's-
to
I
let
was
you know
gonna say, we
that
don't
we're in the
need
middle of the
those
process, yeah.
motions. All right, thank you very much. 6D then, I believe.
Discussion and possible action regarding approval of the Second Amendment to the agreement with Urban Planning Concepts, Inc. for Planning Division Consulting Services for the additional amount not to exceed $80,000 for the existing term to June 30th, 2023, and authorize the mayor to execute on behalf of the city. And authorize a budget amendment in the amount of $80,000 from the general fund.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sophia Cheka. I'm the planning manager. So this item is to keep Lori Tamura, who is the principal for urban planning concepts, on as our planning consultant. She has operated the department for the past 3 years and has been instrumental in everything I've learned over the past year, and has been an incredible asset for everything that we're doing with the general plan now due to the change in leadership. So the request is to authorize a second amendment for her agreement, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the city, and then allow for the budget adjustment of $80,000 from the general fund.
Questions of the staff report?
This is, I do have a question. This is an additional budget amendment for, what was the original budget amount? And is this just for 6 months?
I believe the original budget amount was $60,000, and this is until the end of the fiscal year.
Through June?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there available funds in the general account?
My understanding is yes.
Nothing else?
So just so I'm clear, this is going from 60K to 140K? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have anybody in the public that would like to address this particular issue? Doesn't appear that way. It doesn't appear that we have anybody on Zoom that's interested in this. I don't see any hands raised. We'll bring it back to the council then for last comments.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the amended contract.
I'll second it.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember David Brown. Councilmember Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay.
Discussion and possible action to receive preliminary review of the housing element of the general plan.
Once Roger gets organized, he's going to give you a little opening on this.
You're giving up your seat, Brad? Now we're getting serious.
This item is essentially just to receive the general plan update, the preliminary review of the general plan update. So where we're at right now is, this is a preliminary draft that has been reviewed by several committees, and it is now ready for just an initial presentation to the council, not for your review. It's a very large document, so we're getting it to you so you can start looking at it. So this is a culmination of a 2-year process. It is ready for review by council, but there's no action tonight. We're not asking for any decisions or even for you guys to even know what it says, because you're just getting it now. What we're proposing is to meet on January 23rd, which is 2 council meetings from now, about 6 weeks from now, for a discussion and comment on the housing element only. That is due to some initial due dates for the housing element. And then on the February 13th meeting, which will be the following meeting, There will be discussion and comments on the remainder of the document, is what we're proposing. Authorization to submit the draft housing element to the state, HCD, Housing Community Development Department of the state. And then authorization to begin the EIR process, which begins a 9 to 10 month process for the environmental review of the document. Now, that doesn't mean the document's set in stone. That just means they're going to actually start reviewing it. So we can't make wholesale changes during that timeframe. Because we want them to actually have a steady state document in which to do the environmental analysis. And then once the draft EIR is completed, there will be additional review by the city and the public. There'll be some public comment as well. Also not mentioned on this PowerPoint is beginning December 19th, is it 19th for
Yes.
December 19th will be the public comment period on the housing element. So we're going to open it up to public comment for 30 days. So we'll be getting that in, and that'll close on January 18th. With that, we'll open up for questions. We do have our two subject matter experts here, Sophia Cheka and Lori, you were kind enough to extend her contract just recently. So, so she's available for comment as well if you have any questions. But with that concludes staff's presentation.
Comments?
Yeah.
Well, first, thank you to the General Plan Committee. I just want to acknowledge the amount of work that they have done. You see this document right here. This group of people, they range, it's a variety of people that serve and belong to our community, and they've read pages one by one, commented on what works, what doesn't, what needs improvement, and it's a huge undertaking, and I thank all of you for being involved. I also want to thank staff for taking this on in the middle of so many changes, staff coming, going, changes in leadership. So thank you. I want to encourage everybody to check this out so that you can share on my commitment to our city. This is super important. It talks about how prepared we are for emergencies. Do we want what kind of transportation? How do we deal with our zoning, our housing? What we want our community to look like? What is important to us? So everybody, please participate on that public review. So that being said, this isn't set on stone, right? I see some elements. For example, the parklets, the European style plaza, they're mentioned here, but this is still open to discussion. Yeah. Okay.
You'd mentioned that there's a housing element that has to be decided on earlier. Did I misunderstand something there? Is this document approved in tranches or all at once?
So, thank you for that question, Lori Tamura. And the City of Solvang decided to update all of the elements of the general plan 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the only element that requires state approval is the housing element. And we did not get our RENA numbers assigned to us until last March. So the last 5 months have been the consultants working on, and the RENA numbers are regional housing needs assignment for how we're going to meet the state's obligation for affordable housing. We received those numbers from SB-CAG, one of the committees that you're involved with as a representative, and the city is responsible for 191 units. And they're in different income categories. And so the consultants were working on how to meet that obligation, analyzing different properties, looking at how those properties would be built out, how the assignment of affordability would be applied to them, how many accessory dwelling units could be approved in the city of Solvang over the next 8 years. So the RENA numbers are assigned in 8-year cycles.
Is that 193?
191.
Is that for the next year?
For the next 8 years, 8 years. Yeah, the next 8 years will be the obligation. The planning department is obligated to report to the state every year our progress towards that goal. And so you will be seeing a report in February. The Planning Commission will see a report in February. It'll come to you in March. It needs to be filed by April 1st, and that happens every year, how we're meeting our obligations for housing. So what the consultants did, they were working on the rest of the general plan elements, the pieces that you've seen before you, are draft versions of land use, circulation, the mobility section, the seismic, the environmental infrastructure, all of those different chapters were being prepared, but they took a hiatus on those to focus on housing. The state of California requires that all jurisdictions in the state file their housing element by February 15th of 2023. Unfortunately, because the census came in late, the housing RENA numbers came in late, all of those metrics were assigned to the different jurisdictions later than they thought. The state has not changed that deadline. It's still February 15th. So we have a draft housing element now that you've seen. We also have the housing needs assessment document, which supports that housing element. And we also have our availability of fair market study. So what we're looking for from this council is a review of the housing element. We will be releasing that document on this week for the 30-day public review. We'll see what public input we get, and then we'll be bringing it back to the city council in January for a review of those comments and any changes that we want to make to the housing element before we file a draft version of the housing element with the state, and we initiate the environmental review of that document. We did have an offer by the consultants to do an expedited process of environmental review on the housing element, but to break the general plan contract and just focus on housing was a unnecessary cost to the city, because both of those steps would have needed their own independent environmental review. And so we made the recommendation to keep the documents and all of the elements together and go through one environmental review process. So it does delay our final filing of an approved housing element, but we think it makes more sense in the long run to have all of the documents, the land use, housing, circulation, and all the other related elements go together through the public review process. So that's the direction that we're giving. So you saw the timeline that was outlined there. The environmental review process is about a 6 to 9, maybe 10-month process. So we're talking about later next year, finally wrapping up all of these documents for the actual public hearings and review.
Lori, thank you for all of that. What's the downside or the consequence that we're only filing a draft and that we are delaying?
I believe it was summarized in the staff report. There's 3 elements. One of them is if we have any grants that we would be applying for during this period of time that require an approved housing element, we wouldn't qualify for those grants. Once the housing element is approved, then we could apply for those grants. The other element is in regards to, any affordable units that might come forward could have what they call a builder's, And so that means a builder could come in and say, I'm going to do all affordable, and you have to approve my project. And so that's definitely something that, we know it's a risk, but as has been indicated, every jurisdiction in the state of California is operating under that risk right now because of these timing elements that have been going on. And that was, what's that? Oh, yes, and there's another element that says if you don't have an approved housing element, you have to rezone your properties within 1 year instead of a 3-year cycle. And because we have just a couple of particular sites that we're identifying right now for affordable sites, we're directing the consultants to do a general plan change and rezoning at the same time. So we're going to get it all done in one cycle, trying to expedite and be cost-effective for the city.
Could I ask you to restate that builder's remedy approval requirement if they meet?
Technically, a builder's remedy is that if a builder comes forward with an affordable project, a commitment to affordability, it's a ministerial permit. That means it's over the counter. And you wouldn't have opportunity for the planning commission or the city council or the DRC to weigh in on how that project would move forward.
Attachment B is an info sheet from, I think, a Bay Area group or Council of Governments. And essentially, you have to be able to make one of, I think, 4 or 5 findings. And if you're unable to, then builder's remedy kicks in. And then if it meets the criteria that Lori explained, you have to approve it over the counter. So it was not something that we would take to like the design review committee or the planning commission. It'd just be something staff would approve.
Scary.
That's pretty wide opening.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other comments? I would like to bring up one other thing. This is being reviewed and has been constantly going on, as Lori put it, by the General Plan Advisory Committee, or I think actually Claudia said it. The General Plan Advisory Committee doesn't have a duration on it. It doesn't have that 2-year limit. We're not going to get rid of anybody off of that group. Dennis goes, darn. You're stuck. This is 15, 16 people that are all out of the city that have been helping us take a look at this. And a couple of them I would bring up more than anybody else is Lansing and Dennis. These guys have just gone through this in excruciating detail and given us a great opportunity, as I'm on the GPAC, so those of us on the GPAC, the advisory committee, it's given us a tremendous amount of information to help us get this as good as we can. But it still has some problems. But I wanted everybody to know the GPAC will continue to operate on this. They don't get off the hook just because it's the end of the year. Dennis.
And
We have a meeting this week.
I believe you saw the list of the members of the GPAC. There's 2 city council members, 2 planning commissioners, 2 DRC members, and then a number of community members at large.
Right.
And so,
Any other comments for the staff report? Public comment.
What is GPAC?
What is it? General Plan Advisory Committee. This group of 15 people are helping revise the general plan update, helping on the process. Okay, yes, sir.
My name's Charles Chester, and I live in Mission Oaks. And I was served on the hospital foundation here when we went through and did the seismic retrofit to the hospital. And they were up against a similar deadline. And the state basically had to capitulate because none of the hospitals were making the deadline. And Lori said at the Planning Commission meeting, 191 out of 197 are going to be late.
Right.
And I can't believe that the state is going to stick to that deadline. Of course, my advice is worth what you're paying for it. Good evening.
All right, I've got a few requests to speak to this item, so I'll bring those up. Let me start with Sam Berger? Did I get that wrong? Sam. Please pronounce your name.
Ladies and gentlemen, I prefer to delay what I have to share until someone gives an overview of the issue.
Very good. I have a list. I've been asked to call these people up in this specific order. Let's start with Dan Martin.
Hello, my name is Dan Martin. I'm a lifelong resident of the Santa Ynez Valley and a longtime resident of Solvang. I'm also the president of the Mission Oaks Owners Association. And Sophia, maybe you can put up that. Thank you. Mission Oaks has provided you with a very detailed letter regarding the proposed rezoning of Site 3, which lies between Alamo Pintado Road and Mission Oaks. Looking from Sacramento or from 30,000 feet, the consultants hired by the city have seen Site 3 to be an ideal location to build 100-plus units of low and very low-income housing. But our letter to you shows the many issues that will make this site so expensive to develop. It will require units to be sold at above moderate market rate prices. Solvang already has no problem creating above-market housing and can do so without any rezoning. This can be found on Table H58, Sites Inventory on page H96. Our letter to you documents the many issues that will add to the problems and costs of Site 3 development, including steep slopes requiring excessive grading, retaining walls and erosion control, and existing eroded drainage, expansive Diablo soil requiring excavation and importation of non-expansive material, the need for extensive on-site drainage structures such as retention basin and a preservation protection of the historic Mission Aqueduct. Like other Solvang residents, we know that traffic and water are the city's biggest problems. And considering those problems, it does not make sense that the city would want to create far more units necessary, as Table H58 indicates. Traffic is already a problem at Highway 246 and Alamo Pintado Road, and also at the Alamo Pintado and Old Mission Drive intersection, which includes traffic both from the Nielsen's and the Mercantile shopping centers, congestion that Mission Oaks residents experience every day. If the city needs to produce low and very low-income housing, the steeper of the Site 3 parcels is not a good location, as your own staff has pointed out. We encourage the city to consider these two parcels separately and look at other flatter sites, including vacant city property, in order to produce realistic and achievable housing element. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. John Royce. You know, you'd think these people planned this.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is John Royce. First, I'd like to be clear that I attended the May workshop, and I do support thoughtfully designed higher density housing for Solvang's workforce. Extremely limited space in Solvang, however, means it is imperative that we have a thorough understanding of any site for development. So I would like to point out some of the details regarding Site 3 that should be considered before you consider rezoning. As you can see in figure H7 that's up there now, on page H94 of the Housing Needs Assessment, two very different parcels make up Site 3. To quote from the consultant's analysis on page 93, the northern parcel has a more dramatic grade, taking up most of the steep grade of the hill, while the southern parcel is flatter and less costly to develop. There is a 64-foot elevation change in this north-south section. The change is even more dramatic in an east-west section. The steeper parcel resembles an upside-down U, which directs outflow toward the Alamo-Pintado Highway 246 intersection. On the east, it starts at Alamo-Pintado, then climbs steeply to a very small plateau before descending another steep slope to the existing drainage on the west side. This deeply cut channel clearly indicates erosion-prone soils. It flows over both parcels and regularly deposits debris on Old Mission and Alamo Pintado. Developing the entire site at 20 units per acre would require extensive grading while dramatically increasing runoff and soil erosion potential. Necessary access roads, robust retaining walls throughout, extensive erosion control, and drainage structures would clearly challenge affordability. Developing the entire site at 20 units per acre would require extensive grading while dramatically increasing runoff and soil erosion potential. Oh, I just read that, I'm sorry. A USDA soil survey indicated extensive Diablo clay soils on the larger parcel. Notoriously expansive, it expands and contracts dramatically with wet and dry cycles. The survey clearly points out problems with permeability, surface runoff, and erosion. It would require extensive grading and soil excavation, even if we didn't have the steep slopes to consider. Native soil may need to be entirely replaced with non-native expansive material before compaction and foundations are poured. For these reasons, development of 110 or more units with impermeable surfaces, that's roofs, roads, driveways, walkways, etc., will certainly require a retention basin, undoubtedly located on the lower parcel, decreasing space on the very part of the site best suited to affordable housing. Even with the retention basin, a river of water could still flow down Old Mission and Alamo Pintado across Highway 246, requiring expensive off-site drainage infrastructure, further undercutting affordability. We simply cannot toss our eggs in a basket we can't deliver. The most basic analysis shows that the steeper parcel is not a realistic site to develop the affordable workforce housing that Solvang sorely needs. Thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you. Next request I have is for Mr. John Moisen.
Can we show page H94 on the document? Okay. Mayor, council members, my name is John Moison, been a Solvang resident for 21 years, currently live in Mission Oaks community, along with Monica Moison. We have 2 homes there, we've been living there for 7 years. Last week I spoke to the Planning Commission about the problems facing the development of affordable units on that Site 3, particularly on the steeper hillside parcel, which we've discussed, you've seen right there. One issue that many Solvang residents may not be aware is the presence of the historical Mission Aqueduct that connects Alamo Pintado Creek, that's just behind the hospital, to our beloved Mission, San Ynez, and the Neophyte Village. You can still see the dam in the creek west of the hospital where the aqueduct began, and the reservoir it empties into, which is right in front of the Mission. So as you go into the Mission, the reservoir is to your left, and then the entrance to the Mission is on your right. The Mission was founded in 1804. Based on other early infrastructure, the aqueduct is at least 200 years old, certainly deserves protection. The principal labor force of the Mission was Chumash neophytes. Let's safely assume Chumash labor built the aqueduct. Most of the aqueduct has been obliterated by development. You can see that as you walk it. I just did so today. It ran roughly where Viborg Road and Creekside is now, down Alamo Pintado, across Site 3, down Old Mission Drive, where the cottages projects have been recently built. And the largest surviving stretch of the aqueduct is on Site 3, right where a high-density development is proposed. We have a pretty good idea where it is because St. Ynez High School did an award-winning study mapping the aqueduct, which I have a copy of for you, establishing 2 locations on Site 3, both of which are on the upper, steeper parcel. Most of it is underground, not because it was tunneled, as the consultant's report seems to suggest on page 894, but because the very easily erodible clay soil of the hill has been suddenly coming down on top of it. The steeper partial, Site 3, is not suitable for providing affordable housing because it will simply be too expensive to build on that hill. If you want to adopt a realistic plan to provide affordable housing, please don't include the steeper parcel. At the same time, you'll be protecting a unique, irreplaceable, historic resource to share with my children, your grandchildren, and so forth. Supposedly, Solvang treasures this historic structure, but we don't have an ordinance that backs it up. We just do not. Fortunately, Santa Barbara does, and the Mission Dam and Aqueduct there have been protected as a historical landmark. So I hope we can follow their leadership and example. Thank you for your attention. Continued protection of our town's history.
Thank you very much. Kent Lockhart?
Are we good? Okay, thank you. Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing some time. My name is Kent Lockhart. I am a resident of Mission Oaks, and I attended the workshop in May. And I was actually quite excited to see the draft come out on the agenda. However, I can tell you I was disappointed. I was disappointed to see that it was full of errors. And the copy that you provided doesn't even contain the edits that the city's already provided in order to be identified as corrections. So let me give an example here. One of the misguided claims, perhaps the largest, is the two parcels identified on Site 3 are suitable for 90 to 100 plus units, at least 45 low and 45 very low. Unfortunately, we feel this isn't realistic, and according to the city staff, Site 3, and I quote, should be at the most 20 units in the low category with the rest at market rate. This is a challenging site to develop and would be very difficult to fund a 100% low-income project, end of quote. As the city staff has said, only the smaller, flatter 1-acre parcel is suitable for 20 low affordable units. Any units on the larger sloped parcel would be expected to be in a moderate or above moderate category. But we don't need more moderate or above moderate categories units to fulfill our state requirement. Up on screen is H58 of the report. It's a summary of capacity table. What this table shows is the fact that we do not need to do any rezoning in order for us to have moderate or above moderate units for this plan. Solvang will achieve it naturally. Projects, ADUs, vacant sites already will fulfill these two categories. If you look closely at the table, it's kind of confusing. The top line seems to indicate that we need 191 units. But if you look near the bottom, the RENA with required 20% buffer line, you'll see that this is the actual number of units that we need. And by the way, the column totals 230. However, it's wrong. It adds up to 215, which is the number, the actual number required above the 191. Once errors are corrected and foreseeable projects are credited, we get to the bottom line. We only need 68 units, 21 very low and 47 low. And it seems like the table doesn't give the lumberyard project credit for the 3 units that they already claim. Unfortunately, this is flawed. The rezoning of the 4 sites produces a total of 147 units. I ask why. Why do we need to rezone for so many units when we only need 68 or perhaps 65. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Steve Martin?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Stephen Martin, and I'm a resident of Solvang with my wife, Mary Vaughn. Solvang has a state mandate and a civic obligation to make affordable housing available to our workforce and to others who cannot afford more expensive homes. But this housing should be provided with the least alteration to the character of the city and to our neighborhoods, and with the least burden on our infrastructures, our limited water resources, and on the environment. It should not be concentrated in one area, which would segregate our community by income. The tools Solvang uses to encourage private development of affordable housing are rezoning for higher density and land use designation. But while rezoning vacant parcels for high density legally allows for affordable housing, it does not guarantee that it will be built. Likewise, designating a parcel for low-income or affordable housing expresses only a hope which cannot be enforced. Applying these blunt tools without realistic site evaluation produces permanent negative results. Once property is rezoned, developers can choose to build more profitable but unnecessary higher income housing for new, more affluent residents. We suffer the burden of residential development while doing little or nothing to produce affordable housing. A prime example is 670 Alamo Pindado. The property was rezoned for high density, and the fifth cycle housing element designated it for 21 very low income housing units. Instead, we are ending up with 32 units, including 30 above moderate income units. Only 2 units are legally constrained for very low income. In exchange for a bonus, that's in exchange for a bonus to build an additional 9 extra moderate income units. The consultant's proposed 6-cycle housing element before you fails to provide realistic site evaluations. It naively proposes concentrating 90 to 110 and more low-income housing units on 5.48 acres along Alamo Pintado, Site 3, as you've seen. Planning staff and numerous residents who know this land well have clearly shown that the high cost of dealing with the steep slopes, poor soil stability, erosion and drainage, and remediation for flood control, pedestrian safety, traffic congestion will make affordable housing unprofitable on at least the upper 4.48 acres on this site. Rezoning will only result in large numbers of unplanned for and unnecessary higher income units using the city's water, using our infrastructure, causing higher expenses, and adding to traffic congestion. We urge the council to remove the 4.4 acres from which is a sloping lot, from Site 3. Please also do a real feasibility analysis of building housing over city-owned parking lots where the city can determine and guarantee how many housing units that are affordable can be built. Contact Samsung Clinic about including a modest amount of affordable housing as part of their development along Windmill Lane and Mission Drive. We need to get this right, and we need to take the time and make the effort to do that. I have attached to my comments a water bill that I just got in the mail from the city, which describes how serious our water shortage is right now. The study that was done, or the proposed housing element, says that the city can handle water for new housing, but clearly that needs to be more thoroughly investigated because it looks like we cannot. If we think that this lot is going to help us with our affordable housing units, we are misleading ourselves and the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wendy Gregerson?
Good evening, Chairman and council members. Excuse me. My name is Wendy Gregerson, and my husband Hans and I reside in Mission Oaks, and I'm on the Mission Oaks board. First, let me say congratulations, and your work is cut out for you, and we really appreciate all of the time and effort we know you're going to give. I feel disturbed, and I'm here because I feel disturbed, that the housing element report has even progressed this far. In my opinion, something very serious has gone very wrong. Not only with the kind of information that we have been given, and you see the errors that are in the report, but also in the example, and we know there's been a lot of chaos, but nevertheless, there's the example of hearings that open meetings that were supposed to take place that haven't taken place, and therefore there hasn't been sufficient time for input. And there's been no new information up until like about a week ago. And I think that the report has either unstarted or the unfinished task of finding alternate options that may be available to get real affordable housing in Solvang, which we all want for our businesses and for our workers and people who live here. As it's been said before, identifying site 3 in the report shows a very unrealistic and a poor analysis of what can happen on that land. And it'll result in very few affordable units at all being able to be built. It's certainly, as you've heard, not the 90 that the consultants suggest, but more likely 20 is based on the comments of our own staff. But of that 20, it's very unsure how many really affordable houses you will get as opposed to building above market rates, rated. And I think that the impact on Solvang's ongoing ability to resolve already developing infrastructure challenges around water needs, growing congestion and dangerous traffic, and the need to gain actual sustainable, affordable housing. Those are 3 critical elements that the city is going to have to face. And because we're mandated to have this certified housing element, it's not a justification for misleading both the public and the state regarding the suitability of the steeper slope, which we believe cannot be sustained. It's the smaller part, as you've heard, can accommodate most of the housing that you would need. If this report, as it stands today, is accepted the way it is, rather than taking the time to make sure we can create real affordable housing, the error is going to come back to us, all of us, for years to come in a lot of undesirable ways. Because we're going to give up things now, the state is going to be looking at us, and we're not going to continue to find more spaces for affordable housing unless we start looking at a different view for how to achieve that sustainable housing. I thank you for your courtesy and taking the time to listen to me, and I know we entrust you to find a more realistic and objective means for us to meet the state's requirements for affordable housing that can be accomplished without further eroding the quality of life of the citizens around here. And even if it means rejecting, as other state areas are doing, if it's rejecting the state's deadline until the job is done properly, that's what we should do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Lansing? Duncan? They left it up to you to finish this, huh?
No, it's the one before,
Yeah,
actually.
we don't, I think it's a 3-minute time limit, is what the buzzer is, but we don't really enforce it that hard, as long as it's not real.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This proposal would have us believe it's somehow necessary to develop 90 to 110 homes on 5.48 acres to produce only 20 low affordable units that will undoubtedly be sited on the smaller parcel that could easily be developed by itself without the additional 70 to 90 market rate units that we don't need. If you rezone the steeper parcel of DR20, you're empowering the construction of at least 90 units, and if you listen to what is proposed on page H93, the owner has expressed interest in developing the site for multifamily housing through either of the two following methods: grading the site to spread housing throughout the parcels, or condensing the units into flatter, lower elevation portions of the site. This is a recipe for two scenarios we would not want to see in Solvang: either mountaintop removal or 110 units crammed onto an acre. Far into the future, people will be asking, who approved that and why? At a location designated as a scenic vista in the community design element. That's what I asked to be handed up to you. For comparison, Site 1 shows 10 very low and 10 low units being built on 1 acre. This tells it the Site 3, as currently figured with both parcels, is a very poor site for generating affordable housing. It should be reconfigured, omitting the steeper parcel. The consultants have given you an atomic bomb when you need pinpoint accuracy and a minimum of collateral damage. You don't need anywhere near the number of units the consultants are suggesting you rezone for. Solvang's needs for a certified housing element is no justification for misleading the public and the state regarding the suitability of this steep hillside parcel. If it goes forward, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, bait and switch, or a bill of goods, all of the above. There are flatter, less problematic sites that Solvang's considering. But if the city does not have appropriate sites, it should inform the state of that reality, rather than adopting an unrealistic housing element that will come back to haunt the community for years to come. And here's a pragmatic, realistic recommendation to the council. So I've asked staff to hand that up to you. So I would suggest you recommend this to staff. Direct staff to revise the draft housing element update documents to correct errors. There are many. Reflect conditions on the ground. That's obviously a problem. Address the actual documented need. That's obviously a problem. And reflect what Solvang can actually do to address affordable housing. There are many cases in the document where these consultants have committed Solvang to generic actions that Solvang basically can't do and can't afford. We don't have the staff, we don't have the time. And your own staff has asked that those errors be changed. And specifically delete the steeper, hard-to-develop parcel from Site 3, APN 139-530-002, and amend the target for the flatter, easier-to-develop parcel to 20 low units. Direct staff to consider flatter, easier-to-develop sites to achieve the necessary low and very low units, and there are actually very few of them, documented in Table H58, Sites Inventory, once it's corrected. Thank you.
Thank you, Lansing. That's all the slips I have. Yes, sir. We've got a couple more public comments.
Good evening, supervisors, and congratulations on your new position. I wish you well. My name is Sam Burke. I'm a retired electrical engineer, retired from the University of California High Energy Physics Department. I've built a home myself, and I've dug the foundation. It was on soil that was firm, didn't require anything special. However, I'd like to address the issue of foundation failure. And I have an example that I'm showing up on the screen of the Alisol project, which I think most of you are familiar with. There is an example of expansive soil foundation. Now, this foundation, if the soil was like decomposed granite, would cost a minimal amount of money. But because it's expansive, that foundation costs over $50,000 in excess of what a foundation should cost. And you're familiar with that because you already approved it. I want to talk, here's some copies for the supervisors. I'd like to, what causes the foundation to fail? If it's built on adobe, the adobe is, when it rains, the adobe absorbs water and expands. Okay, you build a foundation on it. It's good during the wet season. In the dry season, the soil contracts and pulls away from the foundation, and the foundation collapses. The building falls apart. It's as simple as that. So how do you build on expansive soil? You excavate. That means you take all the soil out, you dump it somewhere out in Buellton or Santa Ynez in the river, and you bring in something like decomposed granite and fill the hole, and then you put your foundation on the hole. That's called over excavation. Sounds logical, it works, but it's very expensive. You gotta dig out material, and you gotta bring in material. There's another way to do it. It's similar to the way they did it in Isla Vista. Have you ever walked along the beach and seen how the homes are built on pilings? The pilings go down below sand level, and you'll see a building sitting by itself on these 30-foot pilings going down to the sand, and eventually the ocean just wipes them out, and the building falls down. That's the other way of approaching these foundations. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's a horrible situation, and it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. Anyway, I think it's the site is a horrible site to put a foundation on. And you're going to have to spend a lot of money designing the right kind of a foundation. And I've got some approaches, but they're very expensive. And anyway, that's all I have to share.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention. And as they say in Solvang, Feliz Navidad.
Karen?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I did put a slip in. I don't know what happened to it, but it's okay. I just want to wrap this up. I'm a member of the Mission Oaks Homeowners Association, former city council member. And I just want to let you know that the individuals that have just been speaking to you have looked at the housing element very, very carefully, as you have surmised here. And they know Site 3 very, very well, as do I. They're actually warning you about a serious mistake. In the consultants, what I have to say is a very short-sighted and rushed proposal that can come back to haunt the city of Solvang. It would be a very, very big mistake for you all as a council to ignore the warnings and the information that you have just heard. And it would be especially disappointing to write the Mission Oaks Homeowners Association off as just a bunch of NIMBYs. So thank you very much for your time.
Nobody would write you off, but thank you. Anybody else in the public like to make a comment? Anybody on Zoom like to make a comment?
Yes, we have one.
You have one? Go ahead. Who's that?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Josh Richmond. Congratulations on your new post and the new council. Looking at myself instead of you guys, can I see the council? Thank you. Josh Richmond. My family has owned this Site 3, which consists of 2 legal parcels, for over 25 years, almost 26 now. My brothers and sisters and I all grew up in the valley. And for those of you who may not know, we redeveloped the commercial shopping center across the street, now known as the Mercantile or the New Frontier Shopping Center. Just a preliminary observation, I noticed that all speakers tonight, every single one of them, are from the neighboring development, Mission Oaks. No other community stakeholders have spoken on this particular site. and none of these people have addressed any of the other sites in Solvang, and no other aspect of the general plan update has been discussed tonight, only our site. The two parcels are currently zoned 20R1, which under the city's land use designations and zoning code allows one house per 20,000 square feet of land area, which translates to 2 houses per acre. That zoning is simply not compatible with any of the surrounding uses, whether it be Mission Oaks up the hill, the commercial shopping centers on the south and east corners, or the medical dental office use across the street, or the parcel that's recently rezoned for 20 units an acre that's going to be built on the corner of Village Lane across from us. Having done the mercantile, we know the soils very well. The soil issues are easily mitigatable through engineering work. We've consulted with civil engineers, architects, construction professionals who have all indicated that a 20 unit per acre zoning designation is perfectly appropriate for this site, feasible to build, and consistent with the surrounding characteristics and area. Number one, it's adjacent to compatible density and land uses. Number two, residential development here will reduce vehicle miles traveled in Solvang. Number three, our site is located on a major transportation artery in the broader valley. It's literally at the cross section of the San Ynez Valley. Cars can travel north, east, and west from here. And finally, density makes sense on this site, and it'll help the city meet its RENA obligations. So in conclusion, we are supportive of 20 unit per acre zoning for these parcels. Or if the city determines that a higher density should be allotted for this central part of the valley, we would be supportive of that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Is that? You want to make a comment?
I believe that ends our comment for this item. The direction here tonight is to receive the materials that have been provided. We have been working with the consultants to do a number of edits to the housing element document based on comments that we've already received from the GPAC as well as from the Planning Commission. There is a document that is ready to be released. It would be the public review draft document at the end of this week for a 30-day comment period, of which we will continue to take comments from the general public and have the consultants take those comments into consideration for revisions to the housing element document. The next step would then be to start the environmental review process. Well, we would bring it back to the city council on the January meeting, 23rd meeting, for final review of not only that housing element document, but the comments that we've received and other suggested sites or other ideas to come in and be embedded into the draft housing element for environmental review. So we are really at the beginning of this process. We have heard the comments from the Mission Oaks community and have directed those to the consultants. Many of the comments that they've made would be items that would be analyzed in the EIR, including the archaeological items, the grading, visual slopes are all part of the EIR review that will be conducted once we move forward with the housing element and the rest of the general plan elements. The EIR will provide additional information for both the Planning Commission, the DRC, the General Plan Advisory Committee, and ultimately the City Council as to what is a feasible density for this site as well as other sites in the city. I think it was mentioned several times that this housing element, compared to previous housing elements, needs to, I'm going to say, pass the smell test. These sites that are being identified have to be viable sites. Whether they'll be developed during the next 8 years is one thing, but they do need to be developable sites. So some of the issues that were brought up by the public will be considered as part of this analysis. So our desire is to keep the process moving. We will be getting comments from the public throughout this next 30-day review and bring that back to the city council and move the project on to the next phase. If it's the city's council desire to give some additional time to this process, look at other sites, we probably would see this whole process be delayed at least 4 months, if not more, because there's a lot of assumptions that were made based on what's already been prepared for the rest of the documents that have been generated. So if we can get through this 30-day review period and take in the comments that were provided by the public, we can make amendments to the housing element at that point, and then move through the next steps of this process. So I just, there are, we're looking for your direction, but those are the options that we have available.
So first off, any other comments from the council? First of all, thank you very much, everybody, for your feedback. I would like to make sure that the consultant's information is accurate. From what I've heard today, these numbers are dubious at best. So I rely on you to make sure that those are accurate as to the number of housing that the site and so forth and whether it is prudent to split that property up in different sections as opposed to lumping it all together. I think that is to be prudent. And then my biggest concern, I think, is really having some unintended consequences if from a affordability aspect of it. If it's not there, where should it be, or what are the alternatives? That would be my 2 cents worth from what I've heard tonight so far. You want to make a comment?
Yeah, I agree with David. The data doesn't seem to add up at all. It needs to be corrected before any decisions are taken. If the consultants are still under contract, we should ask for clarification on a number of points, including whether the site and the land is truly developable. It's pretty clear we need to take our time on this. That report is very detailed, and I think I made it to the very last page, but I did not read every word. And this needs to be very deliberate decision-making, so we don't have any unintended consequences.
Yeah. I got an email this evening, actually, from Roger. I got it on. I wasn't talking into it to see it. I apologize. I got an email from Roger this afternoon saying that we have a GPAC meeting on Wednesday. When we go through that GPAC meeting, are we going to go through this particular element again?
The intent is to finish up the community design element.
Right.
Which we made through about 2/3 of it on the 2nd of November.
Yeah, it was a long
We're going to get through the rest of it. And then we're going to look at the document as a whole to see kind of all the other interactions. On the 9th is when we did go through the housing element. But it certainly can review that as well as part of the GPAC. But if you spend all the time on the housing element, then there's other, the document as a whole maybe won't get your attention as much.
Part of the reason is, a lot of the people that are here were at the last planning commission meeting where this was brought forward and made a lot of comments, and heard a few comments from Aaron Peterson in particular. And he had a couple of great suggestions that have not been included in this housing element. And I would like to see what it takes to get some of those things as alternatives into this housing element. And I don't know the legal parts of it, part of that, how much you can put in, apple pie in the sky stuff. Somebody said apartments above parking lots, which was one of Aaron's ideas. And I like the idea, I just don't know how you accomplish it or anything else. So those are things I'd like to bring up in front of the GPAC and see what everybody says. I'm sure Aaron would be for it, but I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah, we've had some internal discussion about that too, and happy to talk to the GPAC about that if you want.
Excellent, thank you. Last comments?
If I may make
Sure.
response to that, we did talk with the consultants after the planning commission meeting in regards to the concept of building over the existing parking structures and do what they call either platform or podium housing, which would still retain the parking underneath. Again, this is one of those things where we would have to provide some additional information to the consultants and to HCD, the community, the Department of Housing and Community Development. Is that feasible?
Great question.
And so they will, as part of I believe they will, as part of this draft review document will be released, have some statements in there regarding options, including podium housing above the parking lots. But they're going to spend the next 30 days looking at the feasibility of that. So there might not be enough information for this review document to confirm what those costs are, but it will be included. It'll be an alternative in the IR. It'll be analyzed. It was just a late piece of information and request that came from the Planning Commission. So we're listening to all ideas and all options.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, and just one more question. The longer that we keep this open for review, the further we're kicking it down the road, and that opens a window for builders' remedy. They can say, well, while you get your act together, we're gonna do it anyway, and the state is gonna let us because the state wants more housing, correct? So it's important to get this
Including launch.
figured it out. Yeah. The longer that this is the longer that this is unresolved, they could just go ahead and do it anyway. So we need to.
And the other part of it is that we are managing the contract, we are managing the money and the timeline, and further extenuating or extending the timeline and additional review, there would be budget adjustments for the consultants. So we just want to stay within the framework that was originally contracted and move this project through the steps, realizing that there may be some issues here that need further review, but we want to move forward for getting the rest of the public comments, just not Mission Oaks, but the rest of the community looking at the housing element.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the input that you've given us. You've given us a lot to think about, and as you heard just from our discussions amongst ourselves, that we need to look at a couple different options. I really encourage you and all of your friends to look at this during that 30-day review period and give us very detailed notes. Lansing has great capability of detailed notes. I make fun, but the gentleman knows his stuff very well, and he does an exceptionally good review of data. I really appreciate that. At this point in time.
And if I may just say one
Sure.
other thing. The information that's been provided tonight will be forwarded to the consultants and will be included, but please provide any additional comments.
Thank you. At this point in time, there's no motion for this, we were just receiving the report. So I think I'd like to conclude this element, if I may. And the only thing left on the agenda is an AB 1234 report, if anybody has one. Been attending anything you didn't tell us about? In that case, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 9:28.